My name is Diana, 38 years old, and I am the owner of a growing chain of flower shops in Denver. Just a year ago, I thought I had the perfect life with my husband Andrew, to whom I had been married for over 10 years. But then, small pieces of truth began to unravel, and it all started with what seemed like a harmless incident. An email confirming a hotel reservation mistakenly sent to my inbox. At first I reassured myself that it was probably just a mix-up. Andrew often traveled for work, and booking a hotel wasn't unusual. But something was odd. This hotel was in Las Vegas, a place he had never mentioned in his work schedule. My curiosity got the better of me, prompting me to dig further. I uncovered other suspicious documents: plane tickets, expensive restaurant charges, and unexplained transactions on our joint credit card. None of them aligned with any of the business trips Andrew had told me about. Doubt started creeping in. I couldn't let everything slip away without doing something, so I quietly began observing and collecting evidence. No confrontations, no drama. I needed time to see the full picture before deciding how to confront him. One day I checked our bank account and noticed a large withdrawal, $8,000, with no prior warning from Andrew. When I asked him about it, he brushed it off with a casual laugh, saying it was an investment for a business project with old friends. But I knew Andrew was not someone skilled at investing, and his story was full of holes. Then things took a turn when I received a series of messages from an unfamiliar phone number. I discovered conversations between Andrew and a woman named Carla. She addressed him with affectionate nicknames, and he promised her things I had never heard him say before: a new condo in Miami, private getaways, and sweet words that I thought had died long ago in our marriage. I carefully documented everything, screenshots of the messages, and saved them in a secure folder, but I didn't stop there. A week later I hired a private investigator. He quickly provided me with undeniable evidence: photos of Andrew and Carla walking hand in hand at an upscale resort. I didn't confront him right away. I knew that to protect myself and the assets I had built over the years, I needed more than just anger. My attorney, Evelyn Parker, advised me to remain silent and gather more documentation regarding both our joint and separate assets. Quietly, I transferred most of the funds from our joint account into a private one, without Andrew's knowledge. I prepared for the moment of confrontation, not to argue or plead, but to make him see that I was no longer the vulnerable woman he thought he could deceive. The following Monday, the emergency hearing took place at the Denver County Courthouse. I entered the courtroom with calm determination, though I remained vigilant. My attorney, Evelyn Parker, had meticulously prepared all the necessary evidence. I had spent months quietly gathering documents, and today was the day we would bring everything to light. As I had predicted, Andrew arrived with an air of overconfidence. He wore a new suit and was accompanied by Carla, the young woman I had seen in the investigation photos. She clung to his arm, her eyes full of smug satisfaction. It was clear they both believed that this hearing was just a minor formality, that I wouldn't have the strength to counter the arguments Andrew had prepared. But they were wrong. The hearing began, and Andrew's lawyer tried to paint me as a controlling and unsympathetic wife, claiming that Andrew only wanted to refresh his life. "Mr. Harrison has experienced significant marital stress," the lawyer stated. "He simply wanted a fresh start, but Mrs. Diana's actions have been excessive and retaliatory." I remained silent and let Evelyn handle the situation. She gave a slight smile before stepping forward. "Excessive? Retaliatory?" Evelyn began, her voice calm but cutting. "Let's examine the facts." She methodically presented the evidence: hotel bills, unusual withdrawals from the joint account, and text messages from Andrew to Carla, bragging about emptying the account to prepare for a new life. "Your Honor," Evelyn continued, "there is no retaliation here. My client has simply protected what rightfully belongs to her. Mrs. Diana's business assets have always been maintained as separate property, with complete legal documentation showing the initial capital and clear separation from marital assets." Andrew began to lose his composure. He furrowed his brow as each piece of evidence was presented. The turning point came when Evelyn read aloud a text message he had sent to Carla, boasting about having taken care of everything by withdrawing $15,000 from our joint account, leaving nothing behind. "Mr. Harrison," Judge Morrison interjected, "do you deny withdrawing this amount and spending it on personal vacations?" Andrew fumbled for words, attempting to explain. I just needed a break to clear my head," I didn't think it was a big deal. It didn't think it was a big deal? Judge Morrison raised an eyebrow. Emptying a joint account without your spouse's consent is a legal violation. You not only infringed on your wife's financial rights, but also committed financial misconduct for personal gain. Sensing the tide turning against them, Andrew's lawyer scrambled to argue that Andrew had made emotional contributions to the growth of the flower shop business. Evelyn was quick to counter. Emotional contributions? We have here text messages and social media posts from Mr. Harrison in which he repeatedly mocked his wife's business, referring to it as her little hobby. Andrew was left speechless. Carla, seated behind him, began to look visibly uncomfortable. The smugness had vanished from her face, and she stared intently at the floor, clearly no longer confident in the outcome. After reviewing all the evidence, Judge Morrison declared, "The court finds sufficient grounds to conclude that Mr. Andrew Harrison has committed serious financial misconduct. All joint assets will be frozen for further investigation. Mr. Harrison is ordered to repay the amount withdrawn within 30 days. Andrew jumped up in protest. "But I've already spent it. We used the money for the trip to Miami." "Done. And I suggest you find a way to return it," the judge interrupted. "The court does not accept personal expenses as a justification for financial misconduct." I couldn't suppress a slight smile as I heard those words. Andrew had always seen me as someone he could easily manipulate. Today his arrogance had been shattered by the very evidence I had quietly collected. I stood up and walked out of the courtroom with Evelyn, the sound of my heels echoing steadily on the marble floor. Carla was no longer at Andrew's side, as he shuffled out alone. Outside, the early morning sunlight shone brightly, but I knew that for Andrew the bright days were over. This battle was over, and I was the victor. A few weeks after the hearing, I received a call from Evelyn. There was a playful tone in her voice. "Deanna, I thought you'd want to hear this. Andrew's company just announced an internal investigation into his relationship with Carla. It seems his expenses and business trips don't match up with his financial reports." I wasn't surprised. Andrew had always thought he was smarter than everyone else. He had used the company credit card to fund his extravagant trips with Carla, never considering that a simple audit could expose everything. From what I heard through acquaintances, Andrew had been temporarily suspended and was now facing the possibility of losing his job. Worse yet, his image as a grown man dating a young secretary had become a hot topic of office gossip. Some even said that HR had received multiple complaints about Andrew abusing his position of authority. As for Carla, things weren't going well for her either. She quickly realized that the dream life Andrew had promised was nothing more than an illusion. The two of them moved into a small apartment that Carla had rented prior, but their financial situation continued to deteriorate. One evening, I received a text from an old friend, along with a screenshot from Carla's social media account. "Currently learning how to love myself. No one deserves your sacrifices if they don't respect you," she wrote, changing her relationship status to single. "I guess their fairy tale romance is officially over," Evelyn chuckled softly when she updated me on the news. Carla had moved out, leaving Andrew to face mounting debts and expenses he couldn't afford. From that point on, everything began to spiral downward rapidly for Andrew. Without a stable income, he was forced to move back in with his parents in the suburbs of Aurora. Something I was sure was deeply humiliating for him. This was the same man who used to mock me for being too obsessed with saving and asset separation. And now he had to rely on his family for support. I also heard that Andrew had tried signing up for several dating apps, but with poor results. Women his age had no interest in dating an unemployed, middle-aged man living with his parents. Younger women, meanwhile, avoided him after hearing stories about his past from office gossip. "He's desperate to reclaim his old life," a mutual friend reported. Andrew even tried joining an online investment program, but quickly lost money in a scam. I couldn't suppress a small smile at the thought of him sitting in his childhood bedroom, blaming life for the consequences of his own mistakes. One day, his sister Julie visited my flower shop. "Deanna, I owe you an apology," she began. "When everything first happened, I believed Andrew's version of events. He told me you were cold and controlling, but now I see his true nature." I listened quietly without making any comments. Just a few months ago, Andrew's family had turned their backs on me and sided with him. Now they were facing the truth. Andrew wasn't just a bad husband. He was also a selfish son and brother. "I heard he's still trying to appeal the court ruling," Julie added. but no one's supporting him anymore. I smiled softly. What Andrew was going through was the result of his own choices. I didn't need to seek revenge. Life had taken care of that for me. Now, I had everything I needed: freedom, success, and a promising future. After the court ruling, I poured all my energy into expanding my flower shop chain. In the early days after the divorce, I never expected my life to change so dramatically and quickly. Bloom and Grace not only grew but also attracted attention from both the media and the local community. A business journal interviewed me, calling my story a testament to resilience and smart asset management. I was no longer a woman standing in the shadow of someone else's success. I had built and protected everything I had on my own. The first store reached record-breaking revenue for 3 consecutive months. This success allowed me to move forward with opening a second branch in Boulder. My team, which now included key staff members who had been with me since the early days, worked tirelessly to elevate the brand to new heights. I hired 3 additional regional managers and launched an online sales platform. Orders began pouring in from other states, surpassing our initial expectations. Customers frequently visited the shop not just to buy flowers but to show their support. "We've heard about your story and we truly admire you," a middle-aged woman said as she selected an expensive orchid bouquet. "You've proven that women can rise on their own no matter what happens." I could feel the solidarity of the women around me. The words of encouragement and warm glances they gave me when they entered the shop became a great source of emotional strength. I wasn't just selling flowers. I was creating a space where people could feel hope and renewal. Meanwhile, news about Andrew continued to spread within familiar circles. A mutual friend informed me that his former company had officially terminated his employment. This, along with damaging rumors about him in the business community, left Andrew completely isolated. His sister Julie visited my shop once again, this time bringing their mother with her. "Deanna, I'm truly sorry," Andrew's mother Beverly said, her voice trembling. "We were wrong to believe his lies. I never thought he could behave the way he did." I could see the pain and disappointment etched on her face. But I no longer felt anger or resentment. Everything was now in the past, and I only wanted to focus on the future. "We hope you can forgive our family," Julie said softly. I didn't respond directly, only offering a gentle smile. Whether or not I forgave them no longer mattered. I had moved past it all. After that conversation, I realized that I had fully freed myself from the shadows of my past. No one could take away what I had built. In the following months, I received an invitation to join the board of directors for a women's entrepreneurship support organization. They wanted me to be the keynote speaker at an upcoming event, with a focus on protecting assets and achieving business success. The day I stood on the conference stage, hundreds of people had gathered to listen. The stage lights illuminated my face, but this time I felt no fear or self-doubt. I began my speech with a story about preparation, explaining that sometimes life forces you to confront challenges that seem insurmountable. But when you stay true to your values, success will come naturally. After the event concluded, a young woman approached me. "You've inspired me. I'm starting a business too. But I've been afraid to separate my finances from my husband's. After hearing your story, I understand that protecting your assets isn't a lack of trust. It's a way to safeguard yourself." I smiled and gently took her hand. "Always believe in yourself and be as prepared as you can," I advised. "That's the most important lesson I've learned." Outside, the soft afternoon sunlight gently illuminated the flowers in my shop, serving as a reminder that renewal often begins in the most difficult moments. 2 years after the divorce, my Bloom and Grace chain had expanded to 5 locations across Colorado. Each shop operated steadily, becoming a favorite destination for those who loved flowers and sought a fresh touch in their lives. We didn't just sell flowers. We organized floral design workshops and community networking events, creating spaces for people to connect and share their stories. Success was no longer measured by profits alone. I received an invitation from the National Women Entrepreneurs Association to speak at a major conference in Chicago. The topic focused on asset protection and business management. Standing in front of an audience of over 300 people, I no longer felt the fear or pressure I had experienced during my early struggles. "Hello, I'm Deanna Harrison," I began, my voice clear and steady throughout the hall. "I used to believe that in marriage you had to share everything. Your dreams, your career. But I came to realize that sometimes, careful preparation is the key to protecting what you've built with your own sweat and tears. I shared the story of my failed marriage and the lessons I had learned. When you invest in yourself, you're not only protecting your assets but also your self-worth, I told them. The crowd applauded as I finished. Afterward, several women approached me, sharing how my story had inspired them to be more independent and safeguard their rights in business. A young woman came closer, her eyes shining with admiration. "I got married right when I started my first business," she said. "My husband told me that separating finances showed a lack of trust, but now I understand that's not true. Thank you for helping me see that." I gently placed a hand on her shoulder. Never stop believing in yourself. Remember, preparation isn't mistrust. It's the foundation for safety and success, I advised. Meanwhile, Andrew's life continued to deteriorate. I heard that he was still living in his childhood bedroom at his parents' house in Aurora. His attempts to find new employment failed due to his tarnished reputation, and his dating life also went nowhere. One day, Julie, Andrew's sister, visited my main shop. "My brother has really destroyed his own life," she said, sighing wearily. "He still blames everyone else, our parents, his former company, even Carla. But he's never taken responsibility for his actions." I listened without showing much emotion. What happened to Andrew no longer affected me. I had moved past the pain, and now I focused solely on my future. One late afternoon, as I was working in my office, I received a message from Evelyn. Andrew filed another petition to have the divorce settlement reconsidered. The court just dismissed it and ordered him to pay court fees. I couldn't help but chuckle softly. Andrew was still trapped in a cycle of blame and failure, unable to realize that he had brought this situation upon himself. I glanced at the picture hanging on my office wall, a plaque recognizing my recent business achievement. Beneath it was a photo capturing the vibrant scene of my first store on opening day, reminding me of the long journey I had taken. Success isn't about revenge. Success is knowing that I am no longer bound by the past. The sunset cast a warm glow over the flower arrangements in the shop, as if signaling that a new beginning awaited. I shut down my computer and prepared for a meeting with my management team. I was no longer just the woman who had been betrayed. I was the woman who had built her own empire, and that was the real victory. Diana's story is a powerful testament to the inner strength of women in the face of adversity. From betrayal and loss, she rose resiliently, transforming her pain into the motivation to build a thriving career. Diana not only protected her assets and self-worth but also became an inspiration for other women to prepare, stand on their own, and overcome challenges. In real life, her story reminds us that the greatest success lies not in revenge but in rising and shining on our own terms. What are your thoughts on Diana's story and her journey through adversity? Share your opinions in the comments. Don't forget to follow the channel to continue exploring meaningful stories about life, family, and resilience in future episodes.